Welcome once again to our YouTube channel. Thanks for subscribing to our channel. In this tutorial, I want to quickly look at the biology practical specimen that will be used for Waec 2025 examination. The specimens that Waec has released for this year's Waec biology practical. So we'll talk about the specimen one after the other. So we have just had a list of the specimens here. Specimen A happens to be the bean weevil, and our specimen B is the bean seed with holes. Our specimen C is waterleaf plant, the whole waterleaf plant, and specimen D happens to be quill feather of a domestic fowl. Our specimen E is pineapple fruit, the longitudinal section of a pineapple fruit, while specimen F is the orange fruit, which has its own cut as well. That's the transverse section of the orange fruit. Specimen G is the raw egg of a domestic fowl, freshly procured with its shell intact. The raw egg of a domestic fowl that has just been procured. And then specimen H is the test tube containing 3 ml of water placed on a test tube rack, while specimen J is the longitudinal section of boiled fish, also having its shell intact. So those are the list of specimens that has been released for Waec biology practical this year. So quickly we go to take a rundown of all of the specimens one after the other. So in our specimen A, this is what we have for our specimen A. We said our specimen A is the bean weevil, and here we have the classification of specimen A. The kingdom there is Animalia. It belongs to the kingdom Animalia. The phylum is Arthropoda. The C there, that's the class, talks about it being an insect, and the order is the Coleoptera. The family there is the Chrysomelidae, while the genus is Acanthocelides, while its species is Optectus. So that is how the classification of this particular organism, the bean weevil, is. And so from the genus and the species, we have the scientific name of this organism to be the Acanthocelides optectus. Bean weevil primarily feeds commonly on beans. It feeds primarily on the common bean, though it feeds on other organisms like the peas and other leguminous plants. There are pests that are these particular organisms, they are pests of legumes, and they feed on plants as well. That means they feed on the plants of legumes even while they are on the field, and then also on the seeds while in storage. We should know that it is the larva of this organism that usually feeds on the seeds. The adult organism feeds on the plants while it is on the field, majorly feeding on its pollen. And a mature organism, a mature female weevil, can actually lay up to 300 eggs. That is what we have here. It can lay up to 300 eggs. This particular organism has complete metamorphosis. You can see it from the egg to the larva to the pupa, and then lastly to the adult. Also, it has its own economic importance, which is because it destroys seeds. That is the economic importance of this organism. So if you have to see some pictures of that, this is what the picture looks like. We can see that is the picture of the Acanthocelides optectus. This is another picture of it here. Let me help us. You can see that is another picture of the Acanthocelides optectus. Here we have another picture, a labeled diagram of that particular specimen, which is here. You can see that it has a pair of antennae. You can see the pair of antennae here, and then it has 3 pairs of working legs, 3 pairs of jointed working legs. It has its head, its prothorax, as well as its abdomen and other labeled parts, as you can see them in this particular picture. So that is about the specimen A. And then we move to specimen B. This is our specimen B, the bean seed with its holes. Bean seed with holes. So classify this organism as well. We have the kingdom to be Plantae, since it belongs to the plant. It is a Plantae, and the phylum is Trachyphyta. The class to which it belongs is the Angiosperma. The order is Fabalis. The family is the Fabaceae. Its genus is Phaseolus, and then species is Vulgaris. So from this we have the scientific name to be Phaseolus vulgaris. That is what we have written here, and we can see how the scientific name has been written. We do not join the underline of the scientific name. When you write, you make sure that the first letter of the name is in capital letter, while every other letters there are in small letter. And when you underline, you don't join the underline. You can see that properly written here. Now about the beans. Beans are legumes. They are pulses, and they are also referred to as creepers or climbers. They are vines, so they actually creep on the ground, but if they are opportune to have a pole nearby as an external support, they can actually grow around the pole. They have different varieties of bean. We have the kidney bean, we have black bean, pinto bean, navy bean, etc. This crop is a summer crop and they need worms to grow, and also they are capable of nitrogen fixation, hence they do not need much fertilizer when they are actually cultivated. If you are looking at this particular crop, its major importance is it being a source of protein. It is used as a source of protein, a major source of protein. And planting this particular crop, it can be propagated vegetatively by seeds. Its placentation is marginal, and then the maturity period of this organism is basically 2 months from planting. So if you are to see what the organism looks like, this is what it is. So this is what that particular organism look like. Bean seed, the one that has holes. You can see holes around the seed. You can see that the seed has been eaten up by weevil. The seed has been eaten up by the bean weevil. So that is what it is. You can see holes around this particular organism. You can see holes here. You can see that. So let me show us another picture that will help us understand that better. You can see these are seeds. These are bean seeds, but they have been heavily infested on by the bean weevil that we made mention of previously as our specimen A, which is the Acanthocelidus obtectus. So that's eating seriously or deeply into this particular species, which is our specimen B. That is the Phaseolus vulgaris. So moving further, we move to our specimen C, which is the waterleaf plant, the whole waterleaf plant. Classifying the waterleaf plant, we have the kingdom to be Plantae, the phylum is Trachyphyta, the class is the Magnolopsida. We have the order there to be the Caryophyllales, and the family to which it belongs is the Thalinaceae. The genus is Thalinum, and the species is Triangulare. Triangulare is the species, and from that we have a scientific name to be the Thalinum triangulare. That is what the scientific name is, and we already know how scientific name is being written without joining the underline. Here, waterleaf is usually called that. It has adopted that name waterleaf because of its high water retention. It has high amount of water in its stem. The stem of this particular plant is succulent. That is why it is called waterleaf. Commonly found in West and Central Africa, that is where you find this particular crop commonly grown, and it is known for its medicinal properties, and it is used in the treatment of so many ailments. It has some properties that make it very, very essential in the use of medicine. It has antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, as well as anti-diabetic properties. These very important properties are the reasons why they are very, very essentially used in treatment of ailments. It is a good source of vitamin and minerals. They are usually cultivated or propagated using the tiny seeds that they produce on their stalk. And this is what that particular plant looks like. You can see what the waterleaf plant looks like here. So this is an example of the waterleaf plant. You can see it here. That's what the waterleaf plant looks like. Here we also have that plant talking about the waterleaf. You can see the whole plant of the waterleaf, and this is a labeled diagram of the waterleaf plant. This is a labeled diagram of the waterleaf plant. Here we can see now that it has its flowers, its fruits, then the stem. And here we have the anode, the internode, the bud. All of these parts here now that are found above the ground, they make up the shoot system, while the part that is in the ground is the root system, where we have the primary root and the secondary roots. So that is that about specimen C. So we move to the next specimen, which is specimen D, which is the quill feather of a domestic fowl. The quill feather of a domestic fowl is our specimen D, and classifying the organism, that's the domestic fowl, we have its classification as thus. The kingdom there is Animalia. The phylum is Chordata because it is a chordate. It is an animal that has backbone. The class is Aves. The order is the Galliformes. The family to which it belongs is the Phasianidae. Then the genus is the Gallus, and the species is Domestica, and that gives rise to its scientific name, which is the Gallus domestica. This particular organism that we are now talking about, this particular organism that we have itemized its scientific name here, is where we now get this particular specimen from, which is the quill feather. So how do we get the quill feather? The quill feather is usually a large steel feather from the bird's wings or tails. That is where we locate the quill feather on the body of the domestic fowl. It is usually found on the wings or on the tails. These feathers are hollow and tube-like, hence they are called flight feathers. They are very, very light because they have holes in them. Their rachis is made of hole, and so the birds are not, or the feathers are not heavy, and that is why it is a flight feather. The quill or the calamus is the part of the feather that attaches to the bird's skin. The quill or the calamus is the part of the feather that attaches to the bird's skin, and the rachis, that's the shaft, extends from the quill, and which it bears the barbs of the feather. Historically, this particular specimen is used as a writing material before the emergence of pen, before the emergence of what we know today to be pen. Actually, the quill is dipped into ink for writing, and they both have rachis. So if we are permitted to look at the similarities between the quill feather and the palm front, the similarity between them is that they both have rachis and barbs. Here is what the quill feather looks like. This is what the quill feather looks like. You can see here is where we have the rachis, we have the calamus here. The calamus is found at this part here. That is where we have the calamus. So it is this part that is inserted into the skin of the feather, and then from there we have the extrusion or the protrusion of this spine here, which is called the rachis. You can see it, that is the rachis, and on the rachis now is where we now have all these veins called the barbs. That is where they are found. So that is what that particular substance looks like. Here's a labeled diagram of that as well. This is what the quill feather looks like. So this is what I was talking about, that if you are told to relate this, if you are told to discuss the similarities between a quill feather and the palm front, the palm front also looks similar to this, just that its own spine is stronger, and then it also has something that looks like barbs here. On the case of the palm front, these are the things that make up the leaves. So that is what the quill feather looks like. And then going to the next specimen now, which is our specimen E. That is the pineapple fruit, the longitudinal section of the pineapple fruit. The kingdom is Plantae A, the phylum is Trachyphyta, the class is Angiosperma, the order there is the Poalis, the family is the Bromeliaceae, then the genus is Ananas, and the species is Comosus. That is the scientific classification, or the binomial classification of this organism. And from this now we have the Ananas Comosus to be the scientific name of this particular specimen. Now for the pineapple fruit, what we'll be looking at is the longitudinal section. That is the cut from top to bottom of this particular fruit. So pineapple is a large tropical fruit with spiky tough skin. It has spiky tough skin, and the internal part of this particular fruit is usually sweet. It has antioxidant properties, and why it is essentially what's used as medicine. It has high amount of vitamin C, or it is highly rich in vitamin C, and it also aids digestion and enhances weight loss. It is a sexual stimulant. It also produces hormones that are responsible for skin and tissue healing. So whenever you make use of this particular fruit, you are helping yourself to heal either skin or tissue issues. Now this particular fruit, this is how it is described. It is a fruit, also known as what? A false fruit, and then a compound fruit. That is how it is classified: a fruit, a false fruit, and a compound fruit. The placentation of this particular fruit is axial, meaning it has its ovules centrally arranged, and propagation of it is vegetative using its sucker. That is how this particular crop is cultivated, and this is what the fruit looks like. You can see that is the pineapple fruit. This is another picture of it when it is still on its stalk on the farm. Here we have the longitudinal cut of that plant. That's the longitudinal cut when it is cut from top to bottom. And here, this is how it will be labeled. We have the flesh, and then in the middle here is where we have the core. This part here is what we refer to as the core. So around the core is now where we have the what, the fleshy part, which is actually being eaten. That is what this particular organism is looking like. So I said that it has spiky skin. You can see the skin of it. It is actually spiky. So this is the longitudinal cut of this particular crop. Then we move over to the next specimen, which is our specimen F. Specimen F is orange fruit, the transverse section of the orange fruit. Classifying the orange fruit, we have the kingdom to be Plantae, the phylum is the Magnoliophyta, the class is Dicotyledon, the order is Sapindalis. The family to which it belongs is the Rutaceae, the genus is Citrus, and then the species is the Sinensis. And from here we have the scientific name to be Citrus sinensis as written here. This particular fruit has waxy skin, which I will show us shortly. It has waxy skin and it is spherical in shape. It is a spherical fruit with outer peel, which is the epicap. It has an underlying fibrous layer called the mesocap and the juicy part, which is called the endocap. It undergoes asexual reproduction, and this asexual reproduction is vegetative. We have it to be grafting or budding. That is how this particular crop is propagated. It undergoes asexual reproduction, either grafting or budding. Sometimes we can use seeds, but the seeds do not actually grow very well or fast like an existing plant will do, and that is why it is usually budded from an existing plant or grafted. Now, classifying this organism, we said it is a fruit which is also a true fruit from ovary. Yes, it is a simple or a monocarpous fruit. It is a succulent fruit, and then we also call it an hesperidium. That is how this particular fruit is being classified. It is a true fruit from the ovary, a simple or monocarpous fruit, a succulent fruit, and a hesperidium fruit. The placentation to this organism is axial. The placentation of this specimen is axial. That is about the specimen, and this is what it looks like. Now if you look at it now, we can see that it has a waxy outer coating. That is what we meant by it having a waxy coating. You see that it looks a bit oily even in the picture. That is what that particular fruit is looking like. So this outermost part here that has this particular picture here, that is what we refer to as the epicap. We refer to this as the epicap. You can see here, this part here is called the epicap. The yellow part here is the epicap, and then directly under the yellow part you can see that we have something white here. That is the mesocap. And then this juicy part here is what we refer to as the endocap. So we have the epicap, the mesocap, and the endocap. That is about the classification of this organism. So when we look at it, this is another picture of it, and that is what the classification looks like. So we move over to the next specimen, which is our specimen G. That is the raw egg of a domestic fowl. The raw egg of a domestic fowl. Eggs are gotten from domestic fowls or birds, which could be layers or broilers. The birds could either be layers or broilers. Birds are oviparous, and that is why they have the ability to lay eggs. It contains albumin, which I will show us shortly. It contains albumin, that is a clear liquid that turns white after heating. Once you apply heat to the egg, the albumin part of the egg, which is usually clear liquid, will turn white. This particular part is highly rich in protein. It also contains water and protein serving as nutrients. It is rich in vitamins. The egg is rich in vitamins A, D, E, K, and that is the fat soluble vitamin, vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin K, and then water soluble vitamin like the vitamin B complex, vitamin B1, B2, B5, B6, B9, and B12, which is the cyanocobalamin. The yolk in this particular egg contains carbohydrates, and it generates energy for the embryo. The yolk deepens. Yes, yolk has its own color, but it deepens to yellow in the center after it has been heated. Once you heat that particular yolk, the color deepens to very shown yellow. The eggshell, which is also cancerous in nature, It gives mechanical support and protection to the internal part of the egg or to the content of the shell. This shell is porous, so it permits gaseous exchange between the environment and the inner part of the egg, and hence the organism inside the eggshell, which is the embryo, is able to carry out gaseous exchange or respirate. If you are to check the viability of this particular crop, you can make use of an instrument called the egg candler, which is used to check the viability of the egg. The incubation period of eggs usually is 21 days, and the colors could be white or brown. We could add them to either be white or brown. And when we talk about the picture of it, this is what it looks like. You can see this is what an egg looks like. So we have that. So you can see them here, and these are two different colors of the eggs. We have some of them to be white and some of them are brown in color. We have some of them to be white and some of them are brown in color. I'm talking about that now. We move to the next specimen, which is our Specimen H. Our Specimen H is test tube containing 3 ml of water. Test tube containing 3 ml of water. Water is composed of hydrogen and oxygen. We know that our water is made up of hydrogen and oxygen, and that is why its formula is H2O. In uses of water, it is used domestically for cooking, washing, drinking, etc. It can also be used in agriculture to water plants. It is used in agriculture to water the plant, as well as the water, when it falls as rain, it helps to increase humidity of the environment. It increases moisture content in the atmosphere. These are major properties of water, which are as a result of the properties of the constituent elements of the water, which is hydrogen and oxygen. Number one is that water is a colorless, odorless and tasteless substance. So here I said water is colorless, odorless and tasteless. Water is also a polar solvent. Water is a polar solvent, and hence it is neutral. And here we said it is a neutral substance which has a pH of 7.0. So it is neither acidic nor basic. It is exactly 7.0. So clear water should be 7.0. And that is what we have here in our specimen. You can see them here. You can see this particular tube here. That is the test tube in a rack containing water. That's test tube in a rack containing water. You can see this picture as well. And lastly, our Specimen J is a longitudinal section of boiled egg with its shell. And so we have talked about Specimen J while we talked about Specimen G, still talking about boiled egg. So everything we discuss under Specimen G is about the boiled egg. And so this is what the picture looks like, the longitudinal section of boiled egg. When it is boiled, we have the outermost shell, which is this brown part that we are seeing here. This part here is the outermost shell, and then directly underneath the outermost shell we have the vitelline lining, which is this part here. That's light blue part that you are seeing here is the vitelline lining. Then we have this white part here called the albumin. That is the part that is called the albumin. Then in the albumin we have this thing here which is holding the yolk centrally positioned. That is called the chalaza. It is responsible for holding the yolk in position. Yeah, we have this particular part here called the yolk. The yolk has an eye spot which is called the germinal disc or the blastodem, and underneath here it has the air space, the air cell, the air sac of the egg. That is what the cell looks like. And this is another picture to help us understand what we are talking about. So you can see the albumin having the chalaza up and below the yolk. The yolk has its blastodem, and then the outermost shell of the egg. We can see that it has a vitelline membrane also in the egg. So that is about the boiled egg. So these are the list of specimens that Waec has released for this year's practical examination. So we encourage you to try as much as possible to go through them, try to understand everything that has been discussed about each of these specimens, and with this we will be able to answer questions when you see them in the examination. If you are yet to subscribe to our channel, we really encourage you to subscribe to our channel and put on the notification button so you get easily informed when we bring up new content on our channel. Subscribing to our channel has a whole lot of benefits to offer you. If you have subscribed to our channel, like our content, share them with your friends, let them also benefit from what you are getting. We wish you success in your examination. Bye for now.